Welcome to Oh Really, where I usually just sit here and have not really very many good things to say about the world, but today I got some relatively good news. To the guy on Tim Pool's show this morning who was on that TikTok video who was saying he's going to vote Democrat instead of Republican, bye bye, peace, no one wants you. Good riddance to bad rubbish. I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. You voted for the last 36 years for war, death in other countries and in our own. Sending our young men and women overseas to fight a war that we never needed to be in, and even if you advocated for the assassination of Osama bin Laden, we could have had that done in the first year. We didn't need to be there for 10 years. You guys are morons if you think that that was the case. The CIA had probably known about his exact location and whereabouts from day friggin' one. We're not stupid. We can about guarantee that the CIA knows way more than the average Joe. Um, you know what? I would normally say live long and prosper or some sort of line like that, but you know what? Good riddance to bad rubbish is what I gotta say. No one wants your war pig attitude in the party anymore. You're outdated, you're unwelcome. And so is your pro war mentality. Um, we do not want wars in our country. And just for reference, I'll pull up the window capture in OBS. Make sure it clicks on the right one. Um, but yeah, for just to reference, Tim, I'm not trying to poach on your content here. I kind of am, but not in the way that people think. Anyway, um, we'll go with this one. All right, just for those who I'm not gonna play his content on my channel because it's his content. I do highly recommend that people go watch this video because it's probably the most important moment in political history when people realize that the GOP, or rather the Republican Party, is no longer the party of pro-war. And we're gonna eke that one off out of view for a bit. Um, Here's the thing: you got a new slew of voters coming in, and there ain't a single one of us who wants to be in these foreign wars. And yes, I'm aware I just died from being cold. I could have totally prevented it, but that's exactly what the war part of the GOP is doing. It's just fucking dying off. Pardon my French. And you know what? Most of Americans, myself included, are sitting here saying, thank God. Good riddance. You're not welcome here anymore. I can't even see how you were welcome in the first place. Not sorry for saying that. You know? Like, I get it, back in 2001, when the towers were hit, everyone wanted to be all, go get them. And then about, maybe a year, 2 years afterwards, when you people showed your hand, you literally showed your hand, um, as to what you were really there for. You weren't there to get the bad guy like we wanted you to do. You were there to plunder and harvest resources under the guise and illusion of rebuilding the Middle East, which you didn't even friggin' do. And then the truth comes out, and everyone that wasn't paying attention to this stuff was sitting there being all, mad because that you showed your true colors that we all already knew you had. And then recent years roll by, and people like Ronna McDaniel, who is now, thank God, resigning from from her lead of the political party of the Republicans, which is probably the best thing that the Republicans could have happen to them right now, because we need someone who better represents. I'm not going to say the Republican Party, I'm going to say the American people as a whole. Because to be honest with you, Ronna McDaniel and people like her are only interested in lining their own pockets. When they go ask for your donations, I guarantee you they take money out of it. Like, no duh at this point, right? But you're not going to sit here and tell me that they don't, because we all know it happens. We're not stupid. We know they get paid. Um, but I think instead of being blackpilled about losing GOP supporters from, 36 plus years of voting, big whoop, means you voted for George Bush, who got us into war in the first place, in places that, by the way, we didn't even need to be in. Literally, if we had a problem with a dictator, put a cap in his backside and call it a day. Oh no, we're going to stay there and try to scavenge as many resources out of the country after we do that we possibly can. Like the lithium strip mining in Afghanistan. That now China is doing. Or the opium fields in friggin' Iran and Iraq and Afghanistan and most of the Middle East. Yeah, no. Bye-bye, war pig. That's what I gotta say. Good riddance to bad rubbish. There's a couple other things I'm going to talk about this morning, but Tim Pool kind of got me a little jazzed up this morning about watching these old neocon fuckers leave the party. And you know what? I said it probably a dozen times, and I think this applies. The song, the na 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 na, hey 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 goodbye, applies here. Because they're not wanted. They're going to go over to the Democrats, who are going all war hog because it's what they want. They want to go to war, all right? Which is a really funny thing, because for the last, prior to Donald Trump, the Republicans were the party of war. And that was what most likely cost them the whole thing with Obama. Americans, generally speaking, when you do something wrong to us, we'll hunt you, we'll kill you. But as a political talking point, war is not a very good one to maintain for a very long period of time. As a general rule, and most Americans are not for assassinating people, but there are some instances where you can get the blood in America boiling enough to where they want blood from somewhere else, kind of thing, which I know that's kind of graphic, but it's probably the best thing that I can exemplify. But just like boiling water, it cools off. You can't maintain it forever. You kind of got to go with the flow, let things cool down, and wait for the next attack to happen. And then as a political talking point, you can start talking about war again. You can't constantly ram it down people's throat every year that war is a possibility, because people will get tired of hearing it. It's just like... Alright. I am a 90s baby. I was born in the 90s. My parents largely fed me cereal. Yes, I had bacon and eggs. Yes, I had sausage and eggs. I had biscuits and gravy. Oh, God, I love biscuits and gravy. I know my double chin kind of says that one. But, look, you can't feed people Cheerios every day of their friggin' life and expect them to enjoy Cheerios on the other end of it. A majority of the country is going to be mad about being stuck eating friggin' Cheerios. And that's what it's boiling down to. And on a further note, something that I've been kind of thinking about lately about this whole no new wars thing. I think Trump would be very wise to advocate for no new wars, because majority of us young folk, mostly the people who make up a decent portion of our population at this point, like everyone under the age of, I'm going to say 40, a majority of them don't want any more wars. We're tired of watching our young ones get sent off to death, which literally is what it is. If I had a kid by now, if I had a kid when I was 18 years old, an adult, legally speaking, you account for another year, 19 for, the kid to be born. If I'm 33 this year, The math would state that my kid would possibly have to go to war if I had a kid when I was 18, which I don't think I do. And yes, I have to say I don't think I have a kid that would be that age. Within the next presidential term, would end up in this war. Very likely. So yes, I have every right to oppose this war. I have every right to say no. I have every right to vote Donald Trump if he promises no new wars, and the second he reneges on it, be the first person at the friggin' next presidential campaign cycle, or better yet, be running for friggin' office myself, with the guarantee that there will be no new wars. We will be pulling out of conflicts worldwide. The only ones remaining will be the ones that are of specific importance to direct, not indirect, direct homeland security friggin' issues. And our military forces will be concentrated around our border, where they need to be. And if I ever sent out a military convoy, it would be to just kind of flex the muscles a little bit on the oceans, keep the pirates in check, and that's it. That's it. There's no reason to do anything else. And in reality, I'm going to issue a little hot take that a lot of people aren't going to agree with, because they're going to be like, oh, well, that's isolationist. And I'm going to sit there and say, and your point being? We live on the same planet, but we live on different hemispheres. I think this hemisphere, I think we have to deal with our problems before we consider going off to talk to other parts of the world about their problems. And that's actually a biblical principle. So any Christian Republican out there who's saying that's not a very Christian attitude, actually it is. You deal with the plank in your own eye before you look at the speck in someone else's. Alright, we need to stop killing people in other countries, because trust me, they'll do it themselves. It's just a matter of time. A dictator can only be a dictator for so long before people finally say we've had enough. And yeah, sure, a lot of people will be dead before that happens, but generally speaking, it does happen, and it has happened throughout human history, and will continue to happen, which is why I never understood the desire for these obviously it's because they're sick in the head, but these individuals to be dictators never made much sense to me, because it's like, it's the worst job choice you can ever make. Simply for the fact that you're basically just saying, oh, I want to die at some point. I want my people to kill me. Is basically what you're saying when you become a dictator. And that's not like, wanting death on anyone or anything like that. That's just like stating a simple fact. When you go... that's where those went. When you go off and you do stuff like that, and you be a petty little dictator, you're basically setting yourself up for failure, but you're also setting yourself up for death. And that's really, like, just in general, why would you do that to yourself? It makes no sense. That chest is too close. But yet, there it is. You've got people out there doing it anyway. And it never made a lot of sense to me. Like, why would you... It's like... It's kind of like... I almost don't know how to word this one. It is kind of the equivalence of... gonna throw a gaming analogy here. It is the same principle as if you start a raid in Destiny 2, right? But at the first raid boss, at your first opportunity, the first thing that you're going to do is constantly go down, right? You're going to die every 2 seconds because you refuse to accept the way the raid is supposed to be done. Um, dungeons, yes. 3-man dungeon, right? You're the healer of the group. You're supposed to be sitting back and healing. But instead, you think that you're going to be able to just pull a total B.A. Baracus moment, run up to an ogre that's, got a yellow health bar, and people know what one I'm talking about. It's the one that you had to get Gallahorn in. I don't know if... Yeah, I think it was how you got... Well, anyway, it was one of the dungeons in the same season area that we got the Gallahorn. You're supposed to sit in the healing well and, stay untouched, basically. Instead, you as a healing warlock, you're going to run up and just try to shotgun blast the big bad, even though you're not set up to do that. Is kind of what I'm getting at. Like, you're killing yourself for nothing. You're not getting anywhere with it. You're just costing people time, money, and their health and lives. That is my equivalency to a dictatorship at this point, because dictatorships make no sense. They don't. You will never find a good dictator, because there's always going to be something that they do that is wrong. Always. And that has more to do with... Actually, it's kind of a 50-50 split, but it has a lot to do with how they think of things, but also the people that they're supposed to be dictatorial over. The line between a monarch and a dictator is a dictator does what they want and what they think is right without any input at all, or they're doing it for their own personal benefit and don't really care about anything else. A monarch is supposed to be similar, make similar decisions, but does it off of the inference of what he's told by the general public or a committee, right? So that is the way that's supposed to work. Dictators don't do that. Dictators are just brutal. They do whatever they say goes, and if you don't agree with it, well, I'm sure there's a nice mass grave waiting for you somewhere. And that's the way dictatorships work. And that they actually don't work, because eventually enough people are going to be tired of the mass graves, and then as the dictator, you're going to be the next one in the grave. That's just the way that it is. So yes, us unseating dictators is fine to a degree, but I think after we're done with that, and after we put someone in place that's not going to be that way, then I think maybe we can have a discussion about not being there. All right, and people are going to sit there and say, well, that person could be just as bad as the last one. All right, so we go back and we deal with it later. We don't have to occupy the place for 10 straight years. We don't have to be there for 20, 30 friggin' years, occupying territory that's not even our own, getting our own young men and women killed overseas for something that doesn't make any sense. And if you want the lithium, barter for it. Bargain for it. Trade agreements, make... And that's another, really powerful tool that a lot of people forget about. You're only an Islamist extremist until you realize that, you need things. Right? You're only an extremist and a violent terrorist until you can't supply yourself or your men with your own resources. Then it's well, how do I get more from someone else? And then you're not quite as extreme as you were before. And that's the reality, oh, well, we can go scavenge and pirate and do blah, blah, blah. Yeah, sure, how long is that going to last you? At some point or another, no matter what your level of extremism, you're going to have to negotiate with other people. That's just the way the world friggin' works. You don't have to like it. Heck, 9 times out of 10, I don't really like it myself. If we're being blunt, I really wish I could supply myself with everything I ever needed without having to deal with another person, without having to deal with money, without having to deal with any of that stuff. But guess what? That's not how the world works. And I'm not going to be the YouTuber who gets up and down and screams for joy over, something that should be just a known thing. That's a brain dead way to do things. Guess what? It is. It's stupid. It is stupid. Um, People who want to sit here and say that we need to be overseas, you're dumb. You're dumb. Like, you don't think that Israel can defend itself? Really? Have you seen Mossad operate? Have you seen the Israeli Defense Force operate? Like, at all? Half of the people that work there could probably end ISIS with a paperclip. Are you kidding? And you're over here worried about them? You're dumb. And you know what? I might not know all the particulars about Ukraine, but if you support that shit, you're just as dumb. You are just as dumb. No. See, this wouldn't have happened if we had someone who could have negotiated with Russia in the first place. But we don't. We don't. Oh, no. No, we don't. We really don't. Biden can't negotiate his way out of a paper bag, let alone negotiate with a major foreign power. And anyone who pretends that he is just dishonest because they're watching him get treated with kid gloves by our allies. Heck, I can't even remember the last time he negotiated with them. Like, he is that physically and mentally unfit. He is, by the way, if he is unfit for trial, he is unfit to run as president. He's unfit to be president. And absolutely the 25th Amendment should be invoked. And Kamala Harris should be the sit-in president until this upcoming election. I actually do believe that. Because while I personally believe that she's absolutely corrupt and slept her way all the way up to her current position of power, to be honest, I would almost rather deal with her knowing that she's bent in my own personal way, knowing that she's bent and corrupt. I would rather deal with her than some doddering old fool who'd sit on the nuclear football and trigger it by accident thinking they was getting himself some ice cream. Like, there's no debate there. And that's why I'm going to vote for Trump. I'd rather have someone who's going to do it on purpose, but is going to warn everyone that he's going to do it, than I would have someone who's going to do it on accident and the nuclear Armageddon is there. I haven't had a chance to tell my kids that I love them, or, tell my family that I love them, and, I hope to see them on the other side or anything like that. I want someone who's going to give me that warning so I can give my regards to the people that I love and care about before it happens. Biden, you're not going to have that with Biden. He's going to be so whacked off of his butt because he's so demented that he can't even string along a proper sentence without massive gaffes. He can't talk for 3 hours without massive gaffes. Like, we're not talking about Trump sitting there going, We're talking about mid-sentence. That makes no friggin' sense to anyone. What was it? Gotta gaff care or something like that was one of the more famous ones from Biden. Like, none of that makes sense at all. Not at all. He does not deserve the presidency. He should not be allowed to be our president, and yet there he is. I'm not necessarily saying that it proves that the elections were stolen. I'd say it proves to a degree that there was some fraudulent activity that happened. I think one of the things that I would say was most fraudulent was when Pennsylvania did that thing that was actually ruled unconstitutional by their own Supreme Court and did it anyway. And then you have the whole thing with Texas where Texas outright said, hey, that's not right because, they're tilting their hand towards a certain direction that no other state is allowed to. And they got away with it because the Supreme Court was just like a giant... When you said Supreme Court at that point, you might as well have just drawn a giant picture of a twat because that's basically what they were. Just a bunch of pussies. They dude, if it was against the establishment, they wouldn't do shit. Because they didn't have the ability to. And I'm going to be honest, they didn't. Like, the conservatives and the liberals in the Supreme Court have always more or less been felt like they were bound to the president, and they're not, and they never should have been. Their job is to interpret laws in a way that makes them compliant with the United States Constitution, and if they cannot be compliant with the United States Constitution, then the Supreme Court has the obligation to strike down those laws. You don't like it, too bad. That's the way the country works. Get over it. Nice little song by the Eagles. Get over it. Um, you know, get over it or get out. It's kind of where I'm at right now. We don't need war. We don't need inflation, which is, by the way, a lot of people don't know this, but it's artificially generated by the federal government. They like to blame the economy, but it's actually the National Reserve and the actually it's the Federal Reserve is what it's called. It's the Federal Reserve and the Treasury that's responsible for inflation. Don't believe me? Look it up. Figure it out for yourself. You'll see it for yourself. You absolutely will. I can tell you right now, inflation would be dead tomorrow if we had the right person in the Treasury and the right head of the Federal Reserve. It'd be over. It would be over. We could go back to $2 gas, $2 gallon of milk, $1 loaf of bread, or 50-cent loaf of bread. We could go back to that, absolutely. But they won't do it because it doesn't benefit them. That's where it is. It does not benefit them to do that because then there's no need for them to be there. Most of these things that I'm talking about here should be on autopilot. But in other more culture news, I saw that Madam Web got BTFO'd and hasn't even really been in theaters yet. My take. Well, I don't really care. I don't really care too much anymore. I used to care because I used to really like the Spider-Man franchise, like back when, what was his name? Tobey Maguire, I think it was, who played the Spider-Man that I used to really like. The new kid was alright. Garfield was okay too, but I like the old Spider-Man movies. And I love the new one where they brought all three of them together. I thought that was epic. But I think that particular train has run out of tracks, basically. More because people don't like these movies anymore. We're kind of tired of it. And it's not like the superhero genre as a whole, because there's a whole lot of support right now for the next Deadpool movie, which kind of cock an eyebrow about maybe calling him a superhero just a little bit, because Deadpool isn't exactly a good dude. He's good in the fact that he's entertaining, but as far as good person, no. Good enough, but not good. Not superhero good. Alright? And Deadpool 1 with Colossus kind of exemplifies that point. His interactions with Colossus, which are hilarious. Ryan Reynolds, I don't know if you'll ever see this, but Deadpool is probably one of your better work. And you know what? I know you're going to sit here and disagree with this if you ever see this, but I liked you in Green Lantern too. That was... People give it crap for what it was, but I thought it was pretty good. I really did think it was pretty good. I think it did what it was supposed to. It told the story of the Green Lantern, more or less. I mean, it didn't tell the whole story. There's more after the whole Parallax thing, but it did all right. I really don't think it did a terrible job personally. I mean, the only reason I don't have a DVD copy of it is because I'm currently trying to... I will not buy movies from big box stores. I prefer the secondhand market because I just refuse to support a lot of the stuff that these companies stand for. just like in general, a lot of people don't know this, but like it's not about the trans rights, it's not about the gay rights. It's about the fact that none of that stuff has anything to do with kids. And y'all want to try to push it on kids. Dude, if they end up being trans or gay as adults, that's fine. And if they start showing signs of it as kids, that's fine too. But like parents making decisions like having their kids altered physically and medically before they're adults, before they've had a chance to really understand what it's like to be an adult, is wrong. It is wrong. It is disgusting. It's despicable. And that's more my issue with it, is that is actually actively the most harmful form of child abuse I've seen since I don't know if you people remember the little religious tracts, but since I read the one about the poor girl whose dad was a severe alcoholic and led to her death because she couldn't stay at home because he was too violent, and she died in the rain from the cold. Like, yeah, that was a thing, you know. It was very heart wrenching to read, and I read it at a young age, which probably left me a whole level of religiously screwed up, by the way. But it made me understand that, you know, there are things in this world. Look, I'm a Christian. I swear I cuss. I do things that a lot of Christians say you're not supposed to do, and some things actually the Bible outright says is not okay. Um, you know, I'll admit to that. Sure, does that make me not a Christian? Makes me a very misbehaving Christian if I am. You know, like I'll admit to that. I will admit to it, and there are things that I do that I don't opine or speak or anything like that. I don't speak to because of the fact that I'm either partaking in it or have partook in it in the past. But I also understand that some of the things I've done in the past that were not, you know, in line with the religious faith is part of my growing up in the faith, so to speak. Um, the swearing thing, I kind of died on the hill of Jesus called the Pharisees the sons of snakes when he was flipping over you know, the tables in the temple. You know, that was kind of a thing. So, I mean, grain of salt. Take my word with a grain of salt, basically, on that point. But, like, I don't think swearing is really the biggest issue that we have in this day and age. I think that the fact that we are shoving sex down our kids' throats in general is a bad thing. Like, it is on all points, too. Actually, I'm going to put these on. Um, yeah, I don't know if you people can see that, but, I got a weird bump on my wrist that I wear the occasional glove for. Um, Hopefully it'll go down. If not, I'm gonna have to go see a doctor at some point about it. And just be like, hey, what is this? Did I develop a tumor? Um, it actually does hurt quite a bit too. Like, it's probably arthritis. If we're being honest with how much I'm, you know, gaming, auto mechanics, computer stuff, like game development and whatnot, I probably have arthritis in that hand, like severe arthritis. Um. Anyway, back to the point. I got sidetracked because it started to hurt. That's why I said something about it hurting. Um. Crap, I forgot. Oh, right. The thing with the kids. I'm okay with sex ed in high school. That's not what I'm saying. When it comes to, and I think that should not be taught in your freshman year or your sophomore year. I think that should be like reserved for, well, maybe your sophomore year, but like the tail end of your sophomore year, right? I also think that parents have a lot of responsibility that they're derelict in when it comes to that stuff too. Um, like, as a parent myself, my daughter doesn't live with me. She lives with her mother, and That there's no real like bad reason for that. It just is what it is. Um, you know, I wish my daughter could live with me, but the way that I'm doing things right now is not very conducive to having my daughter with me because we're currently staying with a family member and we're saving up money to we're trying to save up money to build an actual house, and at that point we'll talk about what kids are going to be where, but until then, like, and we're talking about a 2 to 5 year plan here. We're not talking about like, oh well, we have the land, which we do, more or less. There's some other things around that I can't get into. Um, you know, there's some legal stuff that I can't discuss online or whatever. Um, it's just I'm not in a good position to have my kid here, but like, here's my point. As a parent, I know things that people who aren't parents don't know. One of the things that I do know is that until your kid comes up and bites you, like literally bites you, you will never understand the reflexive slap across the face that they get. Like, it is not a punishment per se. It is such a natural reaction at that point to hit whatever is hurting you that you are not going to be able to stop yourself. So, anyone saying that if you hit your kids you're a bad parent is just not a parent themselves. And if they are, they're probably the bad parent, to be honest with you. And before people say, well, how can that be? Dude, look at millennials that don't even know that fruit can come off of trees and you can friggin' eat it. I guarantee you those are the same people that their parents let them get away with everything under the sun as kids. Those were probably the same millennial kids that when they said they're going to go off and smoke pot with their friends and ride their skateboards and shit, their parents said, okay, have fun, come back home at some point. They didn't know what a curfew was. They didn't know what having to do their homework was. I guarantee you that's the same. They're the same group of kids. And now that I think on it, Dad, I don't know if you're ever going to see this video, but if you do, you were right. Oh no, you were right. I don't regret the fact that I was disciplined as a kid. I just wish you went about it a better way. I kind of wish you were a little less tight-fisted on what I could and couldn't do. Like, I understood, like, hey, these kids are out doing drugs, you can't hang out with them. That was fine. But the Pokemon cards, man, really? They're little pieces of cardboard with cute critters on them. And apparently you can play a game with them, so, like, I never understood the reason for not liking that one, and I don't think I ever will. Well, I don't think I did until, like, yesterday. Or rather this morning. It was earlier this morning when I was watching Lost Pause, which, by the way, I like his stuff. And they sent me, and they didn't send me, but they showed the thing from one of his Discord clips where this person has, like, nothing but Eevees everywhere. Stuffed Eevees everywhere. And the second I saw that, I was like, okay, it's one thing to have one or two stuffed animals because you think they're adorable or whatever. But at some point, and yes, I'm gonna pull this out because I wanna make sure that I get this one word for word right. And is that looked like money? Why did I? Oh, someone tore that part of my Bible up. It wasn't the actual Word of God. It was the indexes in the back. Alright, I need Exodus. Just to make sure that I word for word get this correct according to the New King James or the King. This is my NKJV. This is my New King James version. This is the. If you want the most accurate, go with the King James Version. If you want the second most accurate, New King James Version. If you want to waste your time, get any other version. You don't like what I said? Boo hoo. Go cry me a river. Alright. I'm looking for this version of the Bible that I have does not have, and if I would have known I was interesting. I'll have to research into that one later. That's the whole thing with Aaron. So I'm not quite. Here we go. Here we go. 10 Commandments. This is what I wanted to say. Chapter 20, verse 4. You shall not make for yourself carved image any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. You shall not bow down to them, nor serve them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children, to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, but show mercy to thousands, to those who love me and keep my commandments. See, when people say, and the other one is, you shall have no other gods before me, like, those two verses are interchangeable a little bit. When I saw that person, that's, by the way, that's Exodus chapter 20, verse 3 and 4. You could probably include verse 2 if you wanted to, but I don't. That's just like him declaring who he is. But like the Christian bone in my friggin' body was like, okay, so for the longest time as a kid, I and as an adult, I still don't have a problem with Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, and Yu-Gi-Oh! I think that if you're gonna play card games like that, that's fine. But when it becomes to that degree, like I have binders of Yu-Gi-Oh cards, right? They collect dust. They literally collect dust. The only Yu-Gi-Oh cards that I really use are in this box here, along with my Yahtzee dice, a bunch of D&D dices, and some coins for flipping coins or whatever, and a deck of regular playing cards. It's like my offline entertainment box for my own person. And I have another one that has Magic the Gathering and the Pokemon cards in it too. I keep a deck of each, and I have a couple other Yu-Gi-Oh decks that I kind of interchange with depending on like what I want to play with, but like that's not like my everything. I don't dump a ton of money into it. Actually, I dump more money into keeping my grandmother's house, organized somewhat organized and clean and, actively healthy for everyone who's here. And yes, I am staying with a grandparent because the house that I'm working on getting set up is kind of in mid legality, and financial legality, basically. And while we're dealing with that, we're also trying to get the money together for the supplies to put the house together, the septic in, and hopefully get a well put in. Like, I don't care if I have to get in there with a body winch and a shovel. Yeah, we're kind of at that point too. Anyway, yeah. Actually, I'd probably just go with a hand pump well at that point, because like the property has a lot of water around there. Anyway, I take issue with people who don't know what the phrase moderation in all things means. And really, that's the sad part about this is that this whole gay and trans thing, if people just followed the moderation in all things example, like, to the letter, there would be no debate on anything at all. Because no one would care. Everything would be going fine. Like, I'll sit here and say no new wars, and I'll agree with that. But you also have to understand that in moderation, you need that kind of physical war capabilities in order to sustain yourself, like as a country, and that's just it is the truth. It's the truth, because not everyone's going to think that way. Not everyone's going to think, yeah. But just a brief recap. Stop mutilating kids. Stop trying to push us into wars that we don't want or need. And stop sending money to countries that aren't our own. And stop having an open friggin' border, my god. Talk about an advocation of responsibilities by the federal government. Oh man, our president, like, I don't know if that's counted under treason or sedition or what, but like, or seditious conspiracy, but like, yo, he's guilty of it. It's blatantly obvious. He's had 4 years to get Border Patrol down there, shutting the open parts of the border down, and he hasn't done it. He refuses to do it. He has had the resources many times over. He has had the legal ability to deport these people, but he doesn't do it. So that tells me right there that, this guy is just incompetent or he's corrupt. And at this point, I'm kind of confused as to which one I should say. When a court prosecutor says he's a well-meaning old man who has memory issues and cannot reasonably stand trial because he cannot reasonably remember what he did or did not do. And when he can't remember when his son died, and in some instances how he died, he thinks he's talked to people who have been dead for 10 years like 2 days ago. I don't think he's the president. I think someone else is using him as a puppet president while they try to force their own ideals and agenda behind his back. Like, I don't even think he knows what's going on. And that's a problem and a violation of the Constitution. Just outright a violation. Period. People don't have to like it, but it is. It is the truth. If you are the president, you are the president. You are supposed to be the president of the United States. There are not presidents. At the same time, there is one president and a vice president. Now, I mean, if it's the vice president's agenda, then we have a whole other... Then we got a whole other issue, because, like, then you have the vice president basically saying that she's been doing this thing that the president is supposed to be doing, which is true, because apparently she's supposed to be the border czar. Oh boy, she needs to be fired, because she doesn't know what the heck she's doing. That's just blatantly obvious. I don't... Excuse me. I don't understand how she still has a job. As a personal update though, I'm down from 310. I'm at 305. So, yeah, actually it was 312 and I'm actually like 306, but I figure if I keep it on intervals of 10, people might be able to follow it a little better. Or fives. That's fives. But hopefully everyone has a better day, and I hope that more news like this comes out where people that were war hawks in the old Republican Guard are disappearing. And thank you, Tim Pool, for giving me good news this morning. Really needed it. Man, I wish I could screenshot my OBS where it says Democrats panic as the youth vote all in for Trump. Neocons quit GOP. That's like the best news I've heard all morning. No more wars. We're sick of it. We're tired of you people throwing our lives away because of your own personal benefit. Yeah. This further invalidates The other TikTok that I saw, well, actually, it was a reel on YouTube of the guy who basically called Republicans out for wanting to send people to war. Well, hey, guess what, dude? Now it's Democrats. Yeah, now it's you Democrats. They're going to send your sons and daughters to war. How do you feel about that? But we're going to leave it right there. Personally, I hope that I personally, the Democrats could spend the next rest of my life trying to earn back some form of respect or trust from me as a person, and it'll never happen because they flushed it all down the toilet with the far leftism stuff. Like, literally, it is, and we're seeing such a shift that, like, and it's a weird shift to, like, Republicans are becoming the anti-war party, but pro-corporate party, which is kind of weird. Like, we want corporations to profit and prosper because we realize that them doing that is good for their employees too, to a degree. But we're sick of sending our kids to go die in other countries that aren't our own. Um, you know, and I don't speak for myself because none of my kids are of war age yet. You know, and heaven help me if they try to draft my daughter, it's going to be bad. It's going to be really bad. And I am extremely disagreeable towards any sort of draft in general. Draft or conscriptions should be reserved not for numbers emergencies, meaning that your recruiting quota is down. They should be like, we're in an open conflict. We are not directly in an open conflict right now. Well, we weren't until Biden decided to start bombing the Middle East again because, Democrats. Go figure. But yeah, we're looking at an inversion of the parties right now where you have far leftists that are going full authoritarianism. They like to call the right Nazis because of yada yada yada. But in fact, if you actually hold up the list of Nazi-esque ideals, and that's, by the way, the National Socialist Party in Germany, if you held up the ideals from them from 1944, before 1938 to 1944, to what the Democrat Party is pushing for, such as censorship, confiscating guns, and other things, like trying to ban free speech, basically, they're right up there with the Nazis. They're absolutely advocating for free speech abolition and confiscation of firearms. They'll say that they're not, and to them, I pull up like 50 videos of leftist Democrats saying exactly that's what they want. And I could pull them up for days and days and days, and you can call it anecdotal all you want, but at some point in time, the anecdotal becomes the real fact. The Democrats have been taken over by the authoritarian war hawks of this country. It is the fact. They have become exactly the thing that they decried the Republicans for. Alright? I don't want to hear it anymore. They have zero moral authority at this point in time. And yes, the party lines are starting to get destroyed because Republicans are leaving the Republican Party and Democrats are leaving the Democrat Party too. But we're going to leave it there. I think over 45 minutes is definitely more than enough of you people having to listen to me yammer on. So hopefully everyone has a great day. In fact, actually, I'll read you off the exact time, 53 minutes. I've been trying to keep these down around 20 minutes if I've been doing them at all. I've been actually resisting doing the oh really section because I kind of feel like YouTube limits or basically shadow bans it from ever seeing anyone that's not, me making sure my equipment is running. If I'm being honest, I don't think I have an audience. And I don't because I need to have these on a scheduled basis at like 5 o'clock in the morning or something and just like pre-announce that I'm doing them. The problem with the oh really content is my fault because they're off the cuff videos. They're not scheduled like Tim Pool does his stuff. They're not, and I don't have the audience for that. And I'll never get the exposure for it through YouTube because YouTube doesn't like my content, I guess. Um, you know, they don't like me because I'm pro gun, I'm pro Trump, I'm anti Biden, um, I'm anti war. Well, I'm not entirely anti war, but I'm anti interventionism, basically. I think if we have to intervene, it has to be to some direct detriment to us that can be reasonably shown to the people of the United States. Ukraine shows no benefit to the U.S. at all. Israel's benefit is they're just an ally. I really don't think that should warrant the sort of intervention that we give them, to be honest, because they have a lot of other allies that don't offer intervention at all. So, and I'm kind of tired of our tax dollars being the one to foot the bill for their defenses when Israel especially can defend itself at this point in time. Like, yeah, like I said, you don't think they can. Watch Mossad. See if you can get one of the sneaked out videos of Mossad's training or whatever. Watch it for yourself. It'll blow your mind. They could take down a country with a paperclip. I legitimately believe that. Anyway, I'm gonna leave it there. Hopefully, like I said, everyone has a good day. I know I just said that already, but like, I got stuff to do. I can't just sit here and talk politics and Pal World and culture stuff. Although there's a lot of other culture stuff that I could talk about, like massive wins on the localizer drama, because some of these localizer clowns think that they can interject their politics into our media, and we're just not gonna allow it. It's just that simple. It's gonna start costing people money, and that's gonna be the end of it. And they're going to lose their jobs. They're going to throw a hissy fit over losing it to a computer. And I'm going to sit there, I'm going to say, so you trampled all over the community that buys the product that you've been screwing with for years, which, by the way, even predates the whole politics thing, with them inserting Jaden Yuki's name, transforming that from the original Jude Yuki, I think they still kept the last name in that one. But yet Yugi Moto is just fine in the original anime. For Yu-Gi-Oh. The localization stuff made no sense like from day one, but we can save that for another video. Hopefully everyone has a great day. We're expected to have really good weather today, and I am going to enjoy the sun. I'm going to open up the windows, and we're just going to air the house out. It's going to be a little chilly, but it's been winter up here in Maine for a while, and we need the fresh air in the house. So,